Hello and welcome to our webinar, Fall YA Announcements. I'm Maggie Reagan, Senior Editor, Books for Youth. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply type Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we'll pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Links to today's slides were sent directly to you from Zoom at the start of today's webinar, but you can also download them at any time by copying the URLs on this screen into your web browser. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive a follow-up email containing links to today's slide presentation, certificate of completion, and video recording. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Annie Mazes, Senior Manager of Adult Library Marketing at Workman Publishing, Emily Day, Library Marketing Coordinator and YA Specialist at Macmillan Library, Melissa Croce, Associate Marketing Manager at Macmillan Children's Publishing Group, Caitlin Stewart, Marketing Manager at Wattpad Books, and Dina Sherman, Director of School and Library Marketing at Disney Publishing Worldwide. First up, we'll hear from Annie Mazes. Annie handles adult library marketing for all imprints at Workman Publishing Company. She also heads up the Adult Library Marketing Association Committee. Some favorite titles include The Orphan Master's Son and Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast. After nearly 10 years, she still can't believe she gets to book talk with librarians every day. #DreamJob. Thanks for being here, Annie.
Hi, thank you for having me. I am a bit of an interloper. Caitlin Rubenstein, whose contact information is right here, handles our kids' books and YA books, but she's been on maternity leave. She is returning on Monday, July 27th, though. So if you have any questions about any titles you hear here, please also email her because she will be back and she will be able to answer you. Next slide, please. I would be remiss if I did not mention Tigers Not Daughters. This is the stunning next book from Samantha Mabry, whose All the Wind in the World was a National Book Award longlist title. Samantha has crafted a magical novel that is one part drama, family drama, one part ghost story, and one part love story. I don't read a ton of YA books because I have to focus on our adult titles, but I read this and I loved it. The writing is incredible. Samantha just has this amazing sister story of these sisters who, no spoiler alert here, their oldest sister dies, and that's right at the beginning, and everything goes from there. It is so good. It's gotten 5-star reviews, so it's not just me. But that is on sale now. Next up, we've got Body Talk. This is the third title edited by Kelly Jensen, and it does what for body image, what Here We Are did for feminism, and Don't Call Me Crazy did for mental health. We all experience the world in a body, but we don't usually take the time to explore what it really means to have and live within one. Just as every person has a unique personality, every person has a unique body, and every body tells its own story. So in Body Talk, 37 writers, models, actors, musicians, and artists share essays, lists, comics, and illustrations about everything from size and shape to scoliosis, from eating disorders to cancer, from sexuality and gender identity to the use of makeup as armor. Together, they contribute a broad variety of perspectives on what it's like to live in their particular bodies and how their bodies have helped to inform who they are and how they move through the world. This goes on sale very shortly on August 18th. Next up, The Big Fat Notebooks Are Going to High School. Published just 4 years ago, The Big Fat Notebooks revolutionized the study guide for middle schoolers, and now this life-saving series is graduating to high school. Announcing the first 2 titles, Everything You Need to Ace Geometry in one big fat notebook, and Everything You Need to Ace Chemistry. Designed as the natural next step for the savvy students and stressed parents who made math and science the best-selling titles in the middle grade series, these books offer a world of help for 2 of the tougher classes facing most high school sophomores, geometry and chemistry. Using the same formula that made the middle school series so successful, these new high school titles tackle difficult subjects in a lively, memorable, intuitive way. Critical ideas are broken down and clearly explained. Doodles illuminate tricky concepts. There are mnemonics for memorable shortcuts and quizzes to recap all of it. National Science Teacher Award winner Jennifer Swanson is here to break down chemistry into accessible and memorable units, from how to conduct an experiment to the laws of thermodynamics. And high school math teacher extraordinaire Kristy Needham follows along with a year of geometry class, starting with the basics like points, lines, planes, and angles, and progressing to the beginning of trigonometry. These both go on sale September 1st. The Scapegrazzers. An outcast teenage lesbian witch finds her coven hidden among the popular girls in her school and performs some seriously badass magic in the process. Skulking near the bottom of West High's social pyramid, Sideways Pike lurks under the bleachers doing magic tricks. As a witch, lesbian, and lifelong outsider, she's had a hard time making friends. But when the three most popular girls pay her $40 to cast a spell at their Halloween party, Sideways gets swept into this new clique. The unholy trinity are dangerous angels, sugar-coated rattlesnakes, and now, unbelievably, Sideways' best friends. Together, the four bond to form a ferocious and powerful coven. They plan parties, cast curses on dude bros, try to find Sideways a girlfriend, and elude the fundamentalist witch hunters hell-bent on stealing their magic. But for Sideways, the hardest part is the whole having friends thing. Who knew that balancing human interaction with supernatural peril could be so complicated? Rich with the urgency of youth, the Scapegrazzers explores growing up in complex female friendship with all the rage of a teenage girl. It subverts the trope of competitive mean girls and instead portrays a mercilessly supportive clique of diverse and vivid characters. It is an atmospheric, voice-driven novel of the occult and the first of a 3-book series. It received starred Kirkus and PW reviews. And that goes on sale September 15th. Furia. Kirkus' starred review called Furia a riveting coming-of-age story. It's a powerful, own voices, contemporary YA debut novel for fans of The Poet X and I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. It is about a rising soccer star who must put everything on the line to follow her dreams. It's filled with authentic details, the textures of day-to-day life in Argentina, a heart-soaring romance, and a breathless action on the soccer pitch. Furia is a story of one girl's journey to make her life her own. That goes on sale September 29th. The Nightland Express. In antebellum America, 2 teens bury their secrets and join the historic Pony Express, and soon discover the mortal world is not the only one on the brink of war. Young, poor, and orphaned in rural Missouri, that's definitely how I say that normally, Jessamine Murphy frets over her very pregnant sister, not at all sure how to feed their growing family. When Jessamine comes across a recruitment poster to be a rider on the Pony Express, her tomboy heart skips a beat, not only for the ample risk wage, but for the adventure and the chance to track down their wayward father in California. Jessamine cuts her hair, dons a pair of pants, and steps into the world as Jessie. At the Pony Express station, she meets Ben Foley, a quiet but determined boy, so secretive about his origin story there is little doubt it must be turbulent, and they team up and become partners. They are an odd pair, one excitedly navigating the world as a boy for the first time, the other a mixed-race young man trying to defend his freedom, yet their esteem for each other grows as they head west across the United States. As they encounter mysterious portals that carry them miles in an eye blink and unusual creatures with uncanny glowing eyes, it becomes clear that this is no normal mission. A second magical realm exists just below the surface of the mortal one, intertwined since the beginning of time, but the divisive violence of colonization and war are tearing the 2 worlds apart. As Ben and Jessie struggle to find themselves, they discover their unlikely alliance may be the only thing that will save them and the creatures and environment of 2 struggling worlds. This goes on sale September 29th. Foreshadow is a collection of short stories ranging from contemporary romance to mind-bending fantasy that showcase underrepresented voices and highlight the beauty and power of YA fiction. Each piece is selected and introduced by a YA luminary, among them Gail Foreman, Laurie Halse Anderson, Jason Reynolds, and Sabaa Tahir. It also features practical advice to writers from best-selling authors Emily X. Arpan and Nova Renzuma. This goes on sale October 20th. Rise of the Red Hand. This is pure dystopian YA perfection. The South Asian province is split in 2. Uplanders lead luxurious lives inside a climate-controlled biodome, dependent on technology and gene therapy to keep them healthy and youthful forever. Outside the dome, the poor and forgotten scrape by with discarded black market robotics, struggling to survive in slums threatened by rising sea levels, unbreathable air, and deadly superbugs. Ashiva works for the Red Hand, an underground network of revolutionaries fighting the government. When Ashiva crosses paths with the brilliant hacker Riz Ali, a privileged uplander who finds himself embroiled in the Red Hand's dangerous activities, they uncover a horrifying conspiracy that the government will do anything to bury. From armed guardians kidnapping children to massive robots flattening the slums to a pandemic that threatens to sweep through the city like wildfire, Ashiva and Riz Ali will have to put aside their differences in order to fight the system and save the communities they love from destruction. This goes on sale January 19th. And last up, we've got girlhood. All around the world, girls are going to school, working, dreaming up big futures. They are soccer players and surfers, ballerinas and chess champions, yet we know so little about their daily lives. We often hear about challenges and catastrophes in the news and about exceptional girls who make headlines. But even though the health, education, and success of girls so often determines the future of a community, we don't know more about what life is like for the ordinary girls, the ones living outside the headlines. From the Americas to Europe to Africa to Asia to the South Pacific, the 30 teens from 27 countries in girlhood share their own stories of growing up through diary entries and photographs, and the girl stories are put in context with reporting and research that helps us understand the circumstances and communities they live in. This full-color, exuberantly designed volume is a portrait of ordinary girlhood around the world and of the world as seen through girls' eyes. This goes on sale February 9th, and that is it from me. So thank you for joining. And like I said, if you do have any questions, please feel free to email Caitlin Rubenstein. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Emily. Or Annie, sorry. Next up, we'll hear from Emily Day. Emily is the library marketing coordinator and YA specialist at Macmillan. After receiving her Master's of Arts degree in children's literature from Simmons University, she moved to NYC and now calls Brooklyn home. She reads mostly YA and loves contemporary fiction and fairy tale retellings, but will occasionally spice things up with an adult psychological thriller. Emily was proud to be named a Publisher's Weekly Star Watch honoree in 2019. Take it away, Emily.
Hi everyone, Emily here from Wednesday Books and Flatiron Books, and I'm so excited to share some of our upcoming YA titles with you all. But before I do, I just want to quickly point out that some of these titles are available to download right now on Edelweiss, and so if that is the case, you will see a little green download image right beneath the jacket, and that means you can download it and start reading right now. Next slide, please. And also be sure to check out our YA reviews at the Days YA section of our website. All right, let's get started. Next slide. First up, we have Lobezona by Romina Garber. In this Argentine folklore-inspired novel, Romina Garber weaves a tale filled with magic and romance and werewolves. Yes, that's right, werewolves. This is the story about 16-year-old Manuela. She's an undocumented immigrant from Argentina, and she is on the run, trying to escape deportation. Her journey takes her from Miami to a secret world of folklore where witches and werewolves roam as she discovers the truth about who she is. Lobezona walks the line between magical realism and fantasy in a truly extraordinary and beautiful way. And Manu's story is an important one, and Romina Garber tells it flawlessly, inspired by Argentinian folklore and her own experiences as an immigrant from Argentina. Hand this one to fans of Isabel Ibanez's Woven in Moonlight, Roshni Chakshi's The Gilded Wolves, and Tomi Adeyemi's Children of Blood and Bone. Next slide, please. Court of Lions by Samaya Dowd. Samaya Dowd's debut novel, Mirage, was a genre-bending tour de force, named one of School Library Journal's best books of 2018 and receiving multiple starred reviews, with Booklist calling it gut-wrenching, immersive, and captivating. And now, the highly anticipated sequel has arrived. In Court of Lions, Amani has been isolated by Princess Meram after working with the rebels, and Meram is preparing for her wedding. If Amani crosses her one more time, she risks revealing everything. Amani desperately wants to continue to help the rebels, but doing so will put her family and herself in mortal danger. Can she risk the ones she loves most for a war she might not win? Next slide, please. Where Dreams Descend by Janella Angelis. A star showgirl must win a magician's competition riddled with danger in order to secure her freedom, even as a handsome magician distracts her heart in this lush, unforgettable debut fantasy. Where Dreams Descend is the startling and romantic first book in Janella Angelis's debut Kingdom of Cards fantasy duology, where magic is both celebrated and feared, and no heart is left unscathed. This is perfect for fans of The Night Circus, Phantom of the Opera, Moulin Rouge, and Caraval. Next slide, please. Fable by Adrian Young. First, there was Elin, the Viking warrior in Sky in the Deep. Then there was Tova, the powerful truth tongue in The Girl the Sea Gave Back. And now, let me introduce you to Fable. She lives in a world made dangerous by the sea and by those who wish to profit from it. But the sea is the only home she's ever known. Now she must find her place and her family while trying to survive in a world built for men. Fable is filled with all of the action, emotion, and lyrical writing that you love from Adrian Young. And because I could not resist giving you a little sneak peek at the sequel to Fable. Next slide, please. Here is Fable next to its sequel namesake. Aren't they just gorgeous? I will give you just a few seconds to take in the beauty. All right, next slide, please. The Insomniacs by Merritt Weisenberg. Part love story, part eerie suspense, The Insomniacs is a sharp and unsettling contemporary romantic debut about two teens who can't sleep, uncovering the secrets of their neighborhood by night. Ingrid hasn't been able to sleep since the day she fell off the high dive and got a concussion, and she can't remember anything about the incident. Van, Ingrid's neighbor, former best friend, and forever crush, also has trouble sleeping. So they start not sleeping together as they work to piece Ingrid's memory back together and discover some unsettling secrets along the way. Next slide. The Silvered Serpents by Roshni Chokshi. Roshni Chokshi has returned to the dark and glamorous world of the Gilded Wolves with this dazzling sequel. Severin and his team are once again on the hunt for an ancient artifact, but they're also desperate to make amends for what they lost in Paris. This time, their journey takes them to Russia, where they hunt for a long-lost artifact rumored to grant the power of God. The stakes are higher, the action is more intense, and the characters will break your heart and put it back together again. Maybe. And now it has 3-starred reviews, with School Library Journal calling it the sleeker, smarter, sharper, and bloodier follow-up that fans of the Gilded Wolves deserve. Next slide. When They Call You a Terrorist, the YA edition by Patrice Concolors. From one of the co-founders of the Black Lives Matter movement comes a poetic memoir and reflection on humanity. Necessary and timely, Patrice Colors' story asks us to remember that protest in the interest of the most vulnerable comes from love. Leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement have been called terrorists, a threat to America. But in truth, they are loving women whose life experiences have led them to seek justice for those victimized by the powerful. In this meaningful, empowering account of survival, strength, and resilience, Patrice Colors and Asha Bendali seek to change the culture that declares innocent Black life expendable. Patrice Concolors and Asha Bendali's instant New York Times bestselling memoir has now been adapted for a young adult audience, now with photos and journal entries. Next slide. Hush by Dylan Farrow. From activist Dylan Farrow comes a sweeping new fantasy set in a unique and terrifying world where those in power have the magic to control and silence the truth. 17-year-old Shay fears she may be cursed after the death of her brother, but when her mother is killed, Shay suspects foul play and sets her sights on justice. Hush is a powerful feminist fantasy full of twists that casts a ray of light into the shadows of a society based on silencing and manipulation. And this is perfect for fans of The Hazelwood, The Grey Seer, and The Handmaid's Tale. Next slide, please. A Golden Fury by Samantha Coho. This debut from Samantha Coho is set in 18th century Oxford in a dangerous world of alchemy and betrayal. Thea Hope dreams of following in her alchemist mother's footsteps, and the pair are close to creating the Philosopher's Stone, which grants the possessor immortality and the power to turn any metal into gold. But when Thea's mother suddenly destroys the stone, Thea learns that the stone is cursed, and anyone who tries to create it will lose their sanity. Thea is sent to Oxford for her safety to live with her father, who doesn't know she exists, and she soon must figure out how to save the people she loves without destroying herself in the process. Next slide, please. And I know technically this webinar is all about fall, but I just couldn't resist sharing a few of our winter titles with you. So first up, You Have a Match by Emma Lord. Emma Lord's debut, Tweet Cute, took the world by storm with its romance and wit, and now Emma is back with her second novel, You Have a Match. For Parent Trap fans everywhere, You Have a Match is the story about two sisters, Abby and Savannah, who have no idea the other exists, until Abby signs up for a DNA service and discovers she has a sister. The plan is to meet up at summer camp, where Abby intends to figure out why her parents put Savannah up for adoption. But she's about to learn that there's way more to her family than she ever imagined. Next slide, please. Tales from the Hinterland by Melissa Albert. Before the Hazelwood, there was Althea Proserpine's Tales from the Hinterland, a gorgeously illustrated collection of the 12 original stories by Melissa Albert. Journey into the Hinterland, a brutal and beautiful world where a young woman spends a night with death. Brides are wed to a mysterious house in the trees, and an enchantress is killed twice and still lives. This stunning story collection is perfect for dedicated fans and new readers alike, promising to leave all readers breathless and enchanted. Next slide, please. The Project by Courtney Summers. Now, Courtney Summers needs no introduction, but just in case you're new here and are looking for an author to break your heart a million times over, I give you Courtney Summers. Courtney's last book, Sadie, captivated and traumatized readers everywhere as they joined in the search for a missing girl. Now, welcome to The Project. This is a pulls-no-punches thriller about an aspiring young journalist determined to save her sister from a cult. But as she delves deeper, everything she thought she knew about her sister, herself, cults, and the world around her is upended, to the point where she can no longer tell what is real or true. Next slide, please. Anna K. Away by Jenny Lee. At the end of Anna K., tragedy struck. In Anna K. Away, we follow the cast through the course of the next summer as they deal with the fallout of the previous book's events. Anna's father has taken her to South Korea so she can connect with her family there and learn about her roots. Back in the US, the rest of the characters are having a summer they'll never forget. Anna K. Away is full of the risk, joy, heartbreak, and adventure that marks the 3 months of a single life-changing summer. Next slide, please. Down Comes the Night by Allison Saft. This is a gorgeously gothic, deeply romantic YA debut fantasy about two enemies trapped inside a crumbling mansion with no escape from the monsters within. Allison Saft's Down Comes the Night is a snow-drenched fantasy that will keep you racing through the pages long into the night. This is perfect for fans of Emily A. Duncan and Victoria Aveyard. And speaking of Emily A. Duncan, she calls Down Comes the Night utter magic, truly spectacular, and a must-read. So this is definitely one that Gothic horror fans will not want to miss. Next slide, please. And that is it for me. If you have any questions about anything that I presented, feel free to reach out. And we love hearing from librarians, so please do not hesitate. Thank you so much for listening.
Emily, thank you so much. Our next presenter will be Melissa Croce. Melissa is the Associate Marketing Manager for Macmillan Children's School and Library team. She has been with the company for nearly 5 years. Her favorite Macmillan books to read are graphic novels, middle grade nonfiction, and young adult fantasy. Thus far, she's passed the time while in quarantine by watching the new Emma movie half a dozen times and counting, starting a tiny letter, trying to become a yogi, and of course, reading. Thank you for being here, Melissa.
Hi, everyone. Some housekeeping before I get started. Next. I will not be able to send physical copies of any titles. The majority of the titles I'm going to present are available to request for download on NetGalley. If you have any other questions, my contact info is here, and I'll have it up again at the end of my presentation. So let's get started. Next. First up, for any historical thriller fans out there, this is Traitor by Amanda Macrina. Poland, 1944. After the Soviet liberation of Lvov from Germany, the city remains a battleground between resistance fighters and insurgent armies, its loyalties torn between Poland and Ukraine. 17-year-old Tolya is half Ukrainian, half Polish, and he's just joined the Soviet Red Army to keep himself alive and fed. When he not quite accidentally shoots his unit's political officer in the street, he's rescued by a squad of Ukrainian freedom fighters. They might have saved him, but Tolya doesn't trust them. He especially doesn't trust Solovey, the squad's war-scarred young leader. Then a betrayal sends them both on the run, and in a city where loyalty comes second to self-preservation, a traitor can be an enemy or a savior, or sometimes both. Next. Here we have Kind of a Big Deal by Shannon Hale. The only thing worse than high school itself is peaking in high school, and nobody knows that better than Josie Pye. She was kind of a big deal. She dropped out of high school to become a star after all. But as we all know, the bigger you are, the harder you fall, and Josie fell hard. Her entire life keeps imploding. In fact, her Broadway dream is dead, her best friend is distant, and her boyfriend is quote unquote busy. Desperate to escape, Josie gets into reading, literally. She reads a book and suddenly she's inside it. And with each book, she's a different character, a post-apocalyptic heroine, the lead in a YA rom-com, a 17th century wench in a corset. It's alarming, but also kind of amazing. However, the longer she stays in a story, the harder it becomes to escape. Will Josie find a story so good that she just stays forever? Next. The epic fantasy Skybound series comes to an end in Gold Wings Rising by Alex London. As a refresher, or for those who are unfamiliar, the Skybound series follows twins Bryson and Kylie. They come from a long line of falconers, but couldn't feel more differently about it. Bryson strives to be a great falconer, but isn't as talented as Kylie, who just wants to leave their village and find her own way. Throughout the series, the twins have journeyed into the mountains to trap the ghost eagle, the greatest of birds and a killer, and they've been separated both physically and on different sides of a war, and now everything's coming to a head. War is here, and the conflict between love and power begins to fray, threatening bonds of siblinghood and humanity alike. If you haven't picked up this series yet, now is the time, because you can read it all in one go. Next. If this book isn't already on your radar, I'm happy to put it there. Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas is an epic LGBTQ magical realism adventure where Coco meets the Raven Cycle. Fans of Anna Marie McLemore will love this ghost story in which a trans boy, Yadriel, is determined to prove his gender identity to his traditional Latinx family full of brujos and brujas. To do so, he summons a ghost, but not the ghost he intends to. A long story. Said ghost is Julian, the hot bad boy at Yadriel's school, who isn't convinced he's dead and convinces Yadriel to help him figure out how he died. Yadriel reluctantly does so, even though Julian is beyond annoying, but as time goes on, the two grow closer until Yadriel isn't so sure he minds Julian after all. Next. I hope people are familiar with Katie Rose Poole's debut and Mora's finalist, There Will Come a Darkness. Here we have the follow-up, As the Shadow Rises. As a refresher, in There Will Come a Darkness, before they disappeared, the 7 prophets foresaw the end of days and an age of darkness, but they said that one new prophet might be the world's salvation or the cause of its destruction. We met 5 people: Hassan, an exiled prince; Jude, a leader torn between his duty and his heart; Anton, a reckless gambler; Ephira, a ruthless killer known as the Pale Hand; and Beru, Ephira's dying sister. The 5 began a chain of events that can't be undone. And as the shadow rises, kingdoms have begun to fall to a doomsday cult, and an ancient power threatens to break free. But there's hope. The new prophet has a haunting vision that reveals the dangerous beginnings of a plan to stop the age of darkness. Our 5 characters are in very different places. Ephira will stop at nothing to find Beru before it's too late, even if it means completely giving over to her darkest tendencies. Jude returns home in disgrace, his quest to aid the prophet complicated by his growing feelings for Anton, and Hassan forms a risky pact to try and regain his throne. Old wounds will be reopened and new alliances will be tested. Let the end of the world begin. Next. Here we have Flamer by Mike Curato. The author of the Little Elliot series is back, but this time with a YA graphic novel that's based loosely on its own adolescence. It's the summer between middle school and high school, and Aiden Navarro is away at camp. Everyone's going through changes, but for Aiden, the stakes feel higher. As he navigates friendships, deals with bullies, and spends time with Elias, a boy he can't stop thinking about, he finds himself on a path of self-discovery and acceptance. Next. In addition to being beautifully drawn, this book is so powerful. It tackles homophobia, racism, and toxic masculinity in such a haunting way. If you want to hear more from Mike, he'll be participating in an upcoming graphic novel panel with Booklist this upcoming Friday. Next. From superstar Lady Gaga, here is Channel Kindness, Stories of Kindness and Community. Lady Gaga has always believed in the importance of being yourself, being kind to yourself, and being kind to others. With that sentiment in mind, she and her mother, Cynthia, founded the Born This Way Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to making the world a kinder and braver place. Throughout the years, they've collected stories of kindness, bravery, and resilience from young people all over the world. Individually and collectively, these stories prove that kindness not only saves lives, but is also transformational, and its never-ending ripples result in even more kind acts that can change our lives, our communities, and our world. Next. So Twilight is making a comeback, both because of the new book and its internet cult status, but let's face it, fascination for vampires never truly dies. And both literally and in pop culture, vampires never get old. In the delicious anthology Vampires Never Get Old, Tales with Fresh Bite, edited by Sara Cordova and Natalie C. Parker, you'll find 11 stories that take the age-old stereotype of vampires only being white, cisgender, straight, and able-bodied and throw right out of the coffin. Welcome to the evolution of the vampire and a revolution on the page. Next. This is White Fox by Sarah Faring. The author of the chilling thriller The 10th Girl is back. After their world-famous actor mother disappeared under mysterious circumstances, Manon and Thais were sent away from their remote Mediterranean home by their pharmatech tycoon father. Opposites in every way, the sisters drifted apart in their grief. Yet their mother's memory still haunts them both, and they can't put to rest the possibility that she might still be alive. Lured home a decade later, Manon and Thais discover their mother's legendary last screenplay, long thought lost, a fairy tale called White Fox. The clues in this dark fairy tale draw them deep into the island's surreal society and into the twisted secrets hidden by their glittering family, revealing the truth about their mother and themselves. Next. Can books be blockbusters like movies? I'm going to say yes, and here's one of them, Skyhunter by Marie Lu. The Carenza Federation has conquered a dozen countries, leaving the country of Mara as one of the last free nations in the world. Refugees flee to its borders to escape a fate worse than death, transformation into mutant war beasts known as ghosts, creatures that the Federation then sends to attack Mara. The legendary strikers, Mara's elite fighting force, are trained to stop the ghosts, but as the number of ghosts grows and the Federation closes in, defeat seems inevitable. Still, one striker refuses to give up hope. Robbed of her voice and home, refugee and striker Talon knows firsthand the brutality of the Federation. When a mysterious prisoner is brought from the front, Talon senses there's more to him than meets the eye. Is he a spy from the Federation, or could he be the weapon that will save them all? Next. Here we have another trilogy conclusion in Last Pick, Rise Up by Jason Walz. If you haven't already guessed, I'm a big fan of series refreshers, so bear with me once again as I recap a series. 3 years ago, aliens invaded Earth and abducted everyone they deemed useful. The only ones spared were those too young, too old, or too feeble to be of value. Living on Earth under the aliens' harsh authoritarian rule, humanity's rejects do their best to survive. Their captors never consider them a threat, until now. Twins Sam and Wyatt are ready to chuck their labels and start a revolution. It's time for the kids' last picks to step into the game. Next. In the second book of this series, which was Last Pick, Born to Run, Sam and Wyatt were separated. Sam a galaxy away in space and Wyatt back on Earth. Sam is now in the middle of an alien civil war, but has a new friend and more in Mia, and Wyatt is leading the resistance of those on Earth. Now in Rise Up, it's time for the twins to take its last stand, both on Earth and in space. Will they ever be reunited with each other or even with their long-lost parents? You'll have to read the series to find out. Next. This Is All Your Fault by Amina May Safi follows 3 young women, Daniela, hard-faced math lover who secretly loves to write poetry, Ran, known to her coworkers as the perfect little Miss Sunshine, and Imogen, who is just trying to keep her metaphorical and newly shaved head above water. They have absolutely nothing in common except they all work at Wild Night's bookstore, and they love it. But when their beloved bookstore is being unceremoniously shut down and sold off, they are determined to save it, even if it means they have to work together. Throughout the one day they have to turn things around for Wild Nights, the 3 girls will learn about what they're capable of and what they can accomplish when they work as a team. Empire Records meets The Breakfast Club. This Is All Your Fault is an ode to the literary community, to unlikely female friendships, and to being a part of something bigger than yourself. Next. This is Instant Karma by Marissa Meyer. Chronic overachiever Prudence Daniels is always quick to cast judgment on residents of her coastal town. Her dreams of karmic justice are fulfilled when, after a night out with friends, she wakes up with the sudden ability to cast instant karma on those around her. Prue giddily makes use of this power, punishing everyone from public vandals to mean gossips, but there is only one person on whom her powers consistently backfire, Quint Erickson, her slacker of a lab partner. But the more Prue gets to know the annoyingly cute and actually kind of noble Quint, he volunteers with baby otters, you guys, okay? The more her newfound karmic insights reveal just how thin the line is between virtue and vanity, generosity, greed, and love and hate, and fate is. And just as an FYI, this book is not a graphic novel, but if the cover art seems familiar, it's because it was drawn by Caldecott honoree Vera Brosgol. Next. Here we have Sasha Masha by Agnes Borinsky. Alex feels like he's in the wrong body. His skin feels strange against his bones. And then comes Tracy, who thinks he's adorably awkward, who wants to kiss him, who makes him feel like a real boy. But it's not quite enough. Something is missing. As Alex grapples with his identity, he finds himself trying on dresses and wiping on lipstick in the quiet of his bedroom. He meets Andre, a gay boy who is both beautiful and unafraid to be who he is. Slowly, Alex begins to realize maybe his name isn't Alex after all. Maybe it's Sasha Masha. Next. Hand Ruinsong by Julie Ember to the witch you read in your life, but please, I beg you, do not let them hex the moon. In a world where magic is sung, a powerful mage named Cadence has been forced to torture her country's disgraced nobility at her ruthless queen's bidding. But when she is reunited with her childhood friend, a noble woman with ties to the underground rebellion, she must finally make a choice. Take a stand to free their country from oppression, or follow in the queen's footsteps and become a monster herself. Next. And lastly, we have The Ballad of Amy Miles by Kristy Dallas Alley. Raised in isolation at Heavenly Shepherd, her family's trailer dealership turned survival compound, Amy knows that she was lucky to be born into a place of safety after the old world ended and chaos began. But when her grandfather brings home a cold-eyed stranger, she realizes that her quote-unquote destiny as one of the few females capable of still bearing children isn't something she's ready to face. With the help of one of her aunts, she flees the only life she's ever known and sets off on a quest to find her long-lost mother. But as she journeys, Amy discovers many new things about the world and herself. Next. That's everything from me. Again, please note that I will not be able to send out any physical galleys. The majority of these titles are currently available on NetGalley, both at the Macmillan Children's account and the First Second graphic novel account. If you have any other questions, my contact info once again is here. Please check out our website for resources and activities. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Melissa. Next, we'll hear from Caitlin Stewart. Caitlin is the marketing manager at Wattpad Studios. She has worked in publishing for 8 years and in sales and marketing for 9. Caitlin, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlin Stewart. I'm the marketing manager at Wattpad Studios, and I'm incredibly excited to introduce you to Wattpad Books. Next slide. The Wattpad Books tagline is discovered by data, loved by readers. And before I explain how we discovered the stories we publish, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Wattpad itself. Next slide. So what is Wattpad? Wattpad was created in 2006 as a storytelling app with a simple mission: to provide a space where creators can write and readers can discover original stories. These writers and their readers can also connect with each other to provide feedback and support for the various works that they host on the platform. Next slide. Fast forward to 2020, Wattpad is now a thriving community of 80 million global monthly users with stories in every genre imaginable. Next slide. Wattpad is available in more than 50 languages and is used in virtually every country, ensuring that the platform has a wide variety of readers and reading levels. Because there are over 1,000 unique genres on the platform, there is a community space for everyone, whether you're a reader or a writer. Over 1,000 titles written on Wattpad have gone on to be adaptable to TV, film, or publishing, including the After series by Anna Todd and The Kissing Booth by Beth Riegels. The content on Wattpad is accessible and also gives rise to new voices and authors. Next slide. After several publishing deals with existing publishers, Wattpad launched Wattpad Books in 2019 to give our writers an even larger platform. This all leads us back to our tagline, discovered by data, loved by readers, and what it means. Using story DNA machine learning technology, which is pretty cool, each book we publish is discovered through reader data. This includes the number of reads a story has, how large the reader base is, how engaged the readers stay through the story. This is how we find our stories. How we publish them is very traditional. First and foremost, we read them internally. For a tech company, we are all at heart readers. The books then come to editorial and pub boards, and we discuss which books we want to acquire. Once acquired, each author works directly with an editor, copy editor, and publishing team throughout the traditional publishing process. Core to our mission is to acquire and publish diverse and inclusive books alongside those that have surefire commercial appeal. By the end of 2020, we will have published 21 titles. Of those, 7 are written by diverse authors, 8 deal with own voices, and all feature debut authors and rising voices that might otherwise have not found a place in the market. The first of which, next slide. I'm delighted to introduce to you The Invincible Summer of Juniper Jones by Davin McQueen. This literary novel was published last month, and Booklist called it a heartfelt narrative that examines friendship, otherness, and forgiveness, and SLJ said the writing is clear and evocative. It's a summer of 1955. For Ethan Harper, a biracial kid raised mostly by his white father, race has always been a distant conversation. When he's sent to spend the summer with his aunt and uncle in small-town Alabama, his blackness is suddenly front and center, and no one is shy about making it known that he's not welcome here. Enter Juniper Jones, the town's resident oddball and free spirit. She's everything the townspeople aren't: open, kind, and accepting. Armed with 2 bikes and an unlimited supply of root beer floats, Ethan and Juniper set out to find their place in a town that's bent on rejecting them. As Ethan is confronted for the first time by what it means to be Black in America, Juniper tries to help him see the beauty in even the ugliest reality, and that even the darkest days can give rise to an invincible summer. Next slide. I would also like to highlight some of our titles from winter 2020 season that may have been lost in the time of COVID. First, Given by Nandi Taylor. This fantasy novel is about a young warrior woman named Yenny who is on a quest to save her ailing father. While on her quest, she meets Wish, a shape-changing dragon who believes that she is his given, or soulmate. The problem is that Yenny has no desire to fall in love. This book has a starred review from Booklist, which said that in her fresh take on princes and dragon tropes, Taylor eloquently marries Caribbean folklore, magical boarding school tales, and whimsical interspecies romance. Next, Night Owls and Summer Skies is a summer LGBTQ+ romance set at a summer camp. Our main character, Emma, is supposed to be spending her summer before college with her estranged mom, but our mom dumps her at summer camp instead. There, she meets and falls for Vivian, and life is never the same. Finally, Lab Partners, which is also an LGBTQ novel, is about Elliot, who is just trying to get through his final year of high school, until he meets his new lab partner, Jordan. The book is about the highs and lows of high school and falling in love for the first time. The wonderful thing about these last 2 novels is that the characters just are. These are not stories about coming out or struggling with identity. They're just about living in that identity and navigating the same life experiences as every other teenager. Next slide. Some of our more commercial titles from the past year include The Opposite of Falling Apart by Micah Good. This novel has hints of John Green and Sarah Czar as its 2 main characters struggle with serious problems. Jonas was recently in a car accident and lost part of his leg, and Brennan suffers from severe anxiety. They accidentally meet and spend their last summer before college together, and, maybe they start to fall in love. What Happened That Night is a mystery by Deanna Cameron, whose writing is reminiscent of Lois Duncan. This is her first book with us, with her second novel called Homewrecker, publishing next year. What Happened That Night tells the story of golden boy Griffin Tomlin, who was found dead, floating in his pool the morning after his family's Labor Day party. His neighbor, Emily Porterfield, is arrested for his murder. No one knows why she killed him, except for her younger sister, Clara. As the mystery unravels over dual timelines, there are numerous twists and turns, and when the question is answered about what really happened that night, you'll be shocked. Another mystery thriller is The Summer I Drowned by Taylor Hale, and it presents us with an unreliable narrator and a whirlwind adventure. Main character, Olivia, almost drowns when she's a child. That event has haunted her all her life and left her with PTSD. After growing up and moving away, Olivia returns to her hometown to confront her demons, but a series of startling crimes start to occur, and Olivia believes that she's in danger. But is the danger real, or is it all in her head? And while I'm not supposed to have favorites, I can't wait for you to read Entwined by A.J. Rosen, which is publishing on August 28th of this year. It's a perfect read for teens who grew up reading The Lightning Thief, but who are now looking for a more grown-up and romantic take on Greek mythology. The main character, Avery Montgomery, doesn't even know if she wants a soulmate. But as a member of the Hellenaceus, a race founded in antiquity and descended directly from the Greek gods, Avery's attending her first gathering where she'll gain the ability to entwine her thoughts with her destined soulmate and be tied to them forever. But all is not as it seems at the royal court. There are severe and strange looks from the elders, whisperings from the ancient Dodana tree, and encounters with spirits who seem to know Avery better than she knows herself. Throughout these whirlwind events at court, Avery finds herself torn between her feelings for the wise and protective Vladimir and the passionate, fun-loving Adrian. Unwilling to surrender her independence or to betray her heart, Avery must decide once and for all if she'll give in to her desires and risk the wrath of the gods. Because who are you if your destiny lies with another person? Next slide. So what's coming this fall from Wattpad Books? Next slide. The Bro Code by Elizabeth A. Siebert publishes on September 22nd. This is a contemporary fun read, and so as a certified stand-up bro, Nick McGuire knows that some things in life are sacred. Do not skip ab workouts, never back down from spicy foods, and always accept the outcome of rock, paper, scissors. For these are the revered doctrines of the Bro Code, rules of conduct that have been passed down through the ages from bro to bro. Heading into senior year, Cassie High's star soccer player has his priorities straight and intends to spend his time playing sports, hanging out, living by the code. When his best bro Carter's sister Eliza returns from studying overseas, the awkward academic girl Nick remembers is different. Carter might be Nick's bro, but Eliza becomes his whole world, and he has to make a choice between them. Is being with the girl of your dreams worth breaking the most sacred rule, never date your best friend's sister? Somehow, Nick never expected the following, that following the bro code may have even bigger consequences than breaking it. Next slide. Historically Inaccurate by Shea Bravo publishes on September 29th, 2020. It's a contemporary read that deals with themes of deportation, fitting in, and discovering yourself. The main character is Soledad Sol Guerreras. Sol's mother was deported last year, and Sol is left to figure out college without her. Desperate to fit in, she joins her school's history club, where she's required to break into a house and steal an item. In the midst of her break-in, she runs into the grandson of the owners, Ethan, and that one encounter changes her life. This is an Own Voices story for an older YA audience. I should also mention that this book is also a Wattpad Award winner. The Wattpad Awards are Wattpad's annual writing contest, and we believe the world's largest writing contest, with almost 170,000 entries from around the world and in 11 languages last year. Next slide. The I'm a Gay Wizard series by V.S. Santoni, whose pronouns are they, them, is an LGBTQ+ Own Voices fantasy series. In book 1, I'm a Gay Wizard, Johnny, who is gay, and Allison, who is a trans woman, do a bit of magic and capture the attention of the Marduk Institute, an age-old organization dedicated to fostering the talents of young wizards. They're whisked away to the Institute and end up getting in a fight for their lives. Book 2 in our I'm a Gay Wizard series is called I'm a Gay Wizard in the City of the Nightmare King. It publishes on October 27th, 2020. In this book, Johnny, Allison, and their friends are back, and they're trapped and in trouble. They discover that they're in Dreamhaven, the Marduk Institute's mystical prison for wizards, and they can't get out. But that's the least of their problems, because Hunter, Johnny's boyfriend, falls ill with a magical sickness, and his soul is thrown into Night City, an underworld ruled by the Nightmare King. Johnny will not leave Hunter. Vowing to stay together, he, Allison, and Blake enter the Night City, a domain of the dead where both their powers and trust in each other will be tested. But in a realm where the Nightmare King rules, second only to death itself, Johnny's love for Hunter must continue to be his most powerful magic. Next slide. The Bad Boy and the Tomboy by Nicole Nuozo is a contemporary read that comes out on October 13th, 2020. This is a clean romance for a younger YA audience. Macy is a tomboy who loves to play soccer and is hoping for a soccer scholarship. Her crush Cedric asks her out one night, and he's everything that she's looking for in a boyfriend. The only problem is Cedric's cousin Sam, the bad boy. Except he really isn't. Sam has an annoying way of constantly showing up in Macy's life, and something crackles beneath their just friends relationship, which has Macy thinking about him in all the ways she shouldn't. Macy then has to decide if she's willing to risk a friendship and a relationship to follow her heart. Next slide. Stay With Me by Jessica Consolo is book 2 in the With Me trilogy, publishing on December 1st, 2020. Book 1, She's With Me, was published just this past January and already has more than 10,000 copies shipped. Book 3 will follow in fall 2021. The series starts off with Amelia, who has a dangerous past, literally, as a killer is hunting her. But she meets Aiden, the most popular guy at her new school, and they fall for each other, which causes Aiden to be brought into her dangerous world. In Stay With Me, the killer is still out there, and Amelia decides that she needs to leave Aiden and the life she's building because being with him is putting him in danger. But Aiden isn't on board with the plan. This is the fast-paced, wild ride of a series that's perfect for those who need to escape from the world for a few hours. I should note this is a story for an older YA audience and a strong adult crossover appeal. Next slide. And that wraps up our time for today. Wattpad books are distributed through Macmillan and in the US and by Raincoast in Canada, so go ahead and place your orders. Next slide. Keep in touch, please, with us and sign up for our newsletter and follow us on Instagram. You'll be the first to know about upcoming titles and have access to exclusive content and giveaways. You can also find us on Edelweiss, where you can request our upcoming titles to read. Next slide. Thank you so much for your time. I also wanted to say that I just finished reading an early manuscript for one of our books coming out in Winter 21 called Downworld, a paranormal read which we're comping to Stranger Things. If you're interested in a copy, I have 5 ARCs that I can give away, so please email me if you'd like one. Thanks so much again for your time.
Thank you, Caitlin. Our final presenter will be Dina Sherman. Dina has been the Director of School and Library Marketing at Disney Hyperion since 2009. Prior to that, she was the School and Library Senior Marketing Manager at HarperCollins Children's Books. Dina received her MLS from the University of Pittsburgh and worked as a children's librarian for 10 years, first at the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh and then at the Brooklyn Children's Museum. As a librarian, Dina wrote reviews for School Library Journal, including a starred review for Lori Hales Anderson's Speak, and wrote articles and presented on the topic of museum and library collaborations. Dina, bring us home.
All right. I'm going to try to talk fast because I think we're a little short on time, but I can do that. No problem. So I am going to go a little bit into our winter list, as some of the other presenters did, because we had some fall titles that actually moved out to winter. The current crisis has sort of thrown a wrench in a lot of things, so including some of our books, but going to get through all of it. So next slide, please. First up, I'm going to cheat a little bit and talk about some middle grade, but middle grade that I think a lot of your teens are still reading. So this is book 5, the final book in Rick Riordan's Trials of Apollo series. So our heroes, Lester and Meg, are going to be bringing this adventure home, and they're bringing it all home to Camp Half-Blood. So your Rick Riordan fans of all ages are going to be very excited for this. Next slide, please. So my next slide is already out of date, unfortunately, but for all the good best reasons. We actually have 26 starred reviews for our Rick Riordan Presents imprint. I cannot keep the slides updated fast enough. We just got a 3rd review for Paulo Santiago and the River of Tears, which comes out in August. But if you go to the next slide, the next books that we have coming out from the imprint, which again are middle grade, but I think have great crossover appeal. So yeah, next slide, please. Thank you. We have the 3rd book in the Storm Runner series by J.C. Cervantes. Oh, no, sorry, back one. Got ahead of myself. My slides might be behind. We have the 2nd book in the Tristan Strong series. Book 1, Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky, was a Coretta Scott King honor book, and Tristan Strong Destroys the World is the sequel. And then 3rd up, coming in January, we have City of the Plague God by Sara, which is an adventure based on ancient Mesopotamian mythology with characters from the Epic of Gilgamesh. All right, now we can go to the next slide and really dive into the YA. So our next book, On Birthday, is the 10th book in our New York Times best-selling YA series, which takes a key turning point in a Disney film and switches it and then tells the story of what might have happened. So in this case, we go back to Wonderland. Alice is now 18. She's not your normal, typical lady, but she's okay with that. But one day she's developing some photographs that she's taken, and she starts seeing familiar faces, the Queen of Hearts, the Mad Hatter, the Caterpillar, and the face of a girl who needs her help. So Alice has to get back to Wonderland and hopefully will not be too late. Next slide, please. Hashtag No Escape is the prequel novel to Hashtag Murder Trending and Hashtag Murder Funding. Murder Trending was a quick pick for Reluctant Readers Top 10, a Yalta Teen Top 10, a Taisha's High School Reading List from Texas, and an ILA CBC Young Adult Choice. This prequel goes back 20 years before Murder Trending, where our 17-year-old heroine has been invited to compete in an escape room with a prize for millions of dollars. But most escape rooms are about teamwork, collaboration, and this one is about being cutthroat, literally. So when contestants start getting killed off, Percy has to solve a series of bizarre and gruesome puzzles and realizes that someone along the way is out for vengeance. So this sort of alludes to what's going to happen in those next books 20 years later. Next slide, please. Broken Wish is the first book in a series called The Mirror. This is a 4-book fairy tale series that's going to be written by 4 different authors. The first one is by Julie Dow. The second will be Danielle Clayton. The third is Jennifer Cervantes. And the fourth will be L.L. McKinney. So it follows one family over several generations and the curse that plagues them. This first one is about 16-year-old Elva, who has a secret that she has visions and seems to have strange powers, and she's trying to hide them because she knows that in her small village, they do not like witches. But then she has a vision of the future, and she realizes that she's going to have to work with the Witch of the North Woods to try to save everyone there. Next up, please. Next slide. Moving on to Frozen 2, Dangerous Secrets, the story of Iduna and Agnar. So this is a prequel to both the Frozen and the Frozen 2 movies. For those of you who saw Frozen 2, you may have seen that they sort of alluded to the romance between Anna and Elsa's parents. and sort of a mystery that was there. So for all those older Frozen fans who really want to know what happened, this is going to go back and share the exciting romantic story between those two, and who really should not be together. One of them is trying to learn to be a king, and the other one has a secret, maybe not unlike her daughter's secret we see, and they are trying to figure out what to do now that they're falling in love. Next slide, please. Queen's Counsel is a new series that we have coming out that we're calling Disney Princess Meets The Crown. It's a sweeping YA historical fantasy series. So it's reimagining the princesses as young rulers coming into their power, aided by a mysterious force that weaves all these stories together. This first book, Rebel Rose, is the story of Belle. We're in France in 1789, and France is on the brink of its revolution. Belle has broken the enchantress's curse. The beast is its human form, and they're now ruling in the castle in their province of Avignon. But in Paris, the revolution is right about to happen, and they finally know that they can't keep rebellion away from themselves forever. So Belle is now having to deal with magic that she's finding that is something that a queen shouldn't necessarily be involved in, but she's got to figure out what her role is going to be. And we're really excited about this. We think it's going to give people a chance to see these princesses they love in a whole new light. The second book will be about Mulan as a queen. Next up, next slide, please. So Be More Chill. This is a graphic novelization of Ned Vizzini's best-selling novel. This is one of the titles that moved out from fall into winter. Some of you may know that Be More Chill was first an off-Broadway musical and then a Broadway musical. And while it was off-Broadway, it developed a cult following. The soundtrack got this cult following online. And I actually had a chance to see it off-Broadway and was amazed at just the rabid fans for this story and for the music. So we thought it was time to bring the story to everyone in this great new version that has actually been adapted by beloved YA author David Levithan, who had also written a foreword for the paperback of Be More Chill, and rising illustrator Nick Bertozzi. If you don't know the story, so it's the story of Jeremy, who's just a dork in high school and really just, doesn't feel like he has a chance with anything. He just stares at the girl he has a crush on, and he's always being embarrassed by things. But one day he learns about the Squip, which is this pill that you swallow that's actually a supercomputer, and it helps you decide what to say, what to wear, and how to do everything, and makes you cool. And it works, but he does have to learn that there are consequences to this, and there can be a dark side to it. So I think kids are going to really love this new version of this story. Next slide, please. So from best-selling author Alexandra Bracken, you know her from the Darkest Minds series, which was also a very popular movie, comes a new YA novel. It's we call it a sweepingly ambitious, as I suppose it really is. It's a high-octane tale of power, destiny, love, redemption. So I didn't know this, but Alex actually is Greek, and she drew on her childhood love of Greek mythology and stories that her grandparents used to tell her about different myths and legends in Greece. So this story is about descendants of Greek heroes who are battling for immortality and dominance. And what I love about what Alex has done here is she's turning the traditional misogyny and violence against women that runs throughout Greek mythology, turning it on its head and reclaiming that hero's journey and sort of changing our ideas about heroes and monsters. And this cover just absolutely blows me away. I adore it so much. And then I did just want to mention Brightly Woven, which is the other title there. This was also a title that moved out to winter. This is actually an upper middle grade graphic novelization of Alex's debut novel, Brightly Woven. So this is a story about a 14-year-old girl named Seidel, who's a weaver, who doesn't realize that she has powers until one day a wizard shows up in her village and needs her help mending his cloak, and takes her off on an adventure with him, and she starts to realize the powers that she has. Next slide, please. So City of Villains. This is reimagining our favorite Disney villains in a kind of a noir mystery crime procedural, which is very cool. So Mary Elizabeth is a high school senior by day, but at night she's an intern at the Monarch City Police Department. And for years, tension has simmered between the city's elite, wealthy class who are trying to gentrify decaying neighborhoods, and the neighborhood is actually called the Scar. So there's the first little clue there. But one of the daughter of the one of the rich people goes missing, and Mary Elizabeth is actually asked by the chief to get on the case. So it starts off as just a normal missing person case. She realizes she goes down a bit of a rabbit hole where she meets a girl with horns, a boyfriend with a lot of secrets, and what seems to be a sea monster lurking in a poison lake. Just a few clues there that also the cover might give you. And so Mary finds herself caught in a fight between those who once had magic and those who are trying to bring it back. And this is the first in a series. Next slide, please. So The High Republic, these are Star Wars novels of ours that have actually also moved from the fall out into January and February. So The High Republic is a brand new program coming from Lucasfilm. It's actually cross-publisher. There will be adult books, middle grade books, young adult books, comic books, graphic novels, you name it. They're going to be doing everything. It's set 200 years before the events of the movies that we know and love. And this is the era of the High Republic, when the Jedi are the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy. And you know, everything everybody loves. We wanted action, we wanted adventure, we wanted lots of lightsabers and lots of Jedi. So that's what we have here. So the first book is a middle grade novel coming from Justina Ireland called The Test of Courage. And it's about a young Jedi Knight. She's only 15. She gets her first real assignment, but she feels like it's really just babysitting. And what turns out, she's frustrated, but what she finds out is that she's on a ship alone now there's a big event. I'm trying to tell you guys things when I'm not allowed to say certain things. But I mean, there is a massive event that will cross through all the books. And so as this group of kids is dealing with it, they have to take matters into their own hands and try to save themselves and the world that they're above. And then our next book is the young adult novel by bestselling author Claudia Gray, Into the Dark, which is about another Padawan who is frustrated that he's being sent from the capital of Coruscant to go all the way out into the undeveloped frontier. He'd rather stay at the temple, studying the archives, but he also is out on a ship when this event happens. I'm sorry I'm being so vague. They won't let me talk about anything. And has to go and investigate what's going on and go on his own adventure. And next slide, please. So that's it for me. As Melissa had said, we really aren't able to send out a lot of print galleys right now, but feel free to look for our galleys on NetGalley. If you have questions about what's going to be on NetGalley and what isn't, I'm hoping, for example, the Star Wars books will be up there, but I don't have a guarantee yet. Just feel free to email me. All my contact information is there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dina, and a big thank you to all of our wonderful panelists today. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's slide presentation, a title list, a certificate of completion, and a video recording. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit www.booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones. If you haven't already, be sure to check out Booklist Reader, where Booklist contributors post daily about all things books and library land. Did you know that Booklist content is freely available to all? Start reading with our digital edition, a format that pairs the page-by-page reading experience of print with the convenience of online access at booklistonline.com. If you're interested in subscribing, take advantage of this special webinar offer to get print, online, digital, and archive access to Booklist for only $99. Don't forget Booklist Guide to Graphic Novels and Libraries, a special supplemental issue featuring author interviews, extensive book recommendations, contributions from your fellow librarians, and more is currently available for free on this site. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, and one more thank you to our sponsors, Macmillan's Children's Publishing Group, Wattpad Books, Disney Publishing Worldwide, Macmillan Library, and Workman Publishing. This concludes today's webinar.